Hi, what's your name, darling?
My name is Susan Boyle.
Okay, Susan, where are you from?
I am from Blackburn near Bathgate, West Lothian.
She stunned the world in 2009, vanished just as quickly, and for years, fans asked the same question. Where is Susan Boyle now? Today at 64, she lives far from the spotlight, but her story is far from over. From global fame to heartbreak, health scares, and now a surprising comeback in 2025, Susan Boyle's journey is one of resilience, mystery, and hope. Let's uncover where she is today and how she got here. Susan Boyle's story begins far from the glitter of fame in Blackburn, a small working-class town in Scotland. Born in 1961 as the youngest of 9 children, she entered the world under difficult circumstances. Doctors believed a lack of oxygen at birth left her with brain damage, a label that followed her for decades. Her father, Patrick, a World War II veteran, struggled with his own demons and often ruled the household with strictness that left Susan feeling unwanted and small. At school, things weren't much better. Teachers underestimated her, classmates mocked her as Susie Simple, and corporal punishment was a daily threat. On top of that, Susan suffered from epileptic seizures that left her collapsing in class, further alienating her from the other children. The ridicule cut deep, carving out a sense of isolation that would linger long into adulthood. But through it all, there was music. Singing in the church choir, humming around the house, or competing in small local contests, Susan discovered that her voice could transport her somewhere else, somewhere she belonged. Even when doors slammed shut, like when early demo tapes she mailed to record companies went ignored, her love of music kept her going. Those early scars, however, never faded completely. They explain why even now, in 2025, Susan lives quietly, preferring the comfort of her Blackburn home over the noise of celebrity life. The child who once felt invisible has become a global icon, but the shy private girl from Scotland never really left her. While her siblings moved on with careers, marriages, and families of their own, Susan stayed behind. Her life revolved around home, first caring for her aging father until his death, and then devoting herself entirely to her mother, Bridget. Their modest council house in Blackburn became Susan's world. She cooked, cleaned, and kept her mother company, rarely venturing out except for church or errands. Music, though, never left her completely. In the 1990s, she scraped together enough money to record a charity track, just 1,000 copies of Cry Me a River, which drew praise in a local newspaper, but went unheard by most of the world. A demo tape she mailed to record labels came back without replies. To everyone else, Susan seemed destined for obscurity. To Susan, dreams were simply placed on hold. Then tragedy struck again. Susan's beloved sister Kathleen died suddenly, and she stopped singing altogether for nearly 2 years. The silence in the Boyle home deepened, broken only by the steady presence of her mother. Bridget's faith in Susan's talent was unshakable. She reminded her daughter constantly, "You have a gift, and you must use it." For Susan, her mother's encouragement became both a comfort and a burden, a promise she couldn't quite bring herself to fulfill. Looking back now from 2025, it's clear those years shaped the woman she has become. Even after selling millions of albums and amassing wealth, she still chooses the same Blackburn neighborhood, the same modest routines, the same quiet life. For Susan, home has always been a sanctuary, and even after conquering the world, she returned to it.
Was the moment that your life would completely change direction? What were you thinking when you walked out on stage and faced that panel?
I'd had auditions before, you know what auditions are like, scrutinise everything. And I just thought I'd have a good laugh with this.
Yeah.
And of course I spotted my pal, Piers Morgan.
In April 2009, Susan Boyle walked onto the stage of Britain's Got Talent with frizzy hair, a plain gold dress, and the nervous energy of someone who had never been taken seriously. When she announced she wanted to be as famous as Elaine Paige, the audience laughed. The judges, Simon Cowell, Amanda Holden, and Piers Morgan, exchanged doubtful glances. It looked like another forgettable audition. Then she sang, "I Dreamed a Dream." Poured out of her with raw emotion and astonishing power. Within seconds, the laughter turned to gasps. The judges leaned forward in shock, and by the final note, the crowd was on its feet in thunderous applause. Overnight, Susan Boyle became a global sensation. Her audition clip spread across the internet faster than any before it, racking up over 100 million views in just days. Celebrities tweeted about her, Oprah called, and strangers around the world wept watching her performance. That one song transformed Susan from a quiet woman in a small Scottish town into a household name. She didn't win the show, but she won something greater: international recognition and the chance to finally share her gift. And even now that moment hasn't faded. Clips of her audition are still shared online as one of the most iconic talent show performances of all time. Fans continue to revisit it, not just for the music, but for what it represented: the idea that true talent can defy expectations. 16 years later, Susan herself often looks back on that night as the turning point that changed her life forever. The weeks following Susan Boyle's audition were unlike anything the entertainment world had ever seen. Her story was everywhere: front pages, television talk shows, and even political speeches. By the time her debut album, I Dreamed a Dream, was released in late 2009, demand was unprecedented. In the UK alone, it sold more than 400,000 copies in the first week, breaking records. In the United States, she sold over 700,000, outselling established stars like Rihanna, Lady Gaga, and Eminem. Around the world, her album passed 10 million copies, making Susan the most unexpected music sensation of the decade. She was invited to perform at Windsor Castle, appeared on Oprah, and sang for global audiences. Her church in Blackburn became a tourist stop, and fans traveled from as far as Japan just to glimpse the modest home she once shared with her late mother. Susan was no longer the invisible woman. She was a global icon. But fame came with relentless pressure. Touring schedules, red carpets, and press appearances pushed her far outside the quiet routines she had always known. For a woman who thrived on stability, the pace was overwhelming. Today, Susan looks back on those whirlwind years with pride, but also relief that they are behind her. She rarely talks about charts or sales now, and instead spends her days in the same small Scottish town, walking to the shops or attending church services. For fans, it's hard to reconcile the woman who once outsold the world's biggest pop stars with the one who now lives so quietly. But for Susan, that contrast is exactly what keeps her grounded. Global fame was both a dream come true and a nightmare she never anticipated. Within weeks of her Britain's Got Talent audition, she went from quiet obscurity to one of the most recognized women on the planet. But behind the cameras, the pressure was crushing. Paparazzi swarmed her every move. Tabloids scrutinized her personal life, and sudden demands for interviews and performances left her drained. When the show's finale aired and Susan placed second instead of winning, the disappointment and exhaustion collided. Backstage, she reportedly broke down, overwhelmed by the weight of expectations. Just days later, she was admitted to a private clinic in London for what was described as an emotional collapse. Stories about her erratic behavior dominated headlines. Some mocked her fragility. Others questioned whether she was fit for stardom at all. Even Simon Cowell later admitted the production team mishandled her meteoric rise. He confessed she hadn't been prepared for the whirlwind that came after her audition, and he was right. Susan had spent nearly 5 decades living quietly at home. Nothing in her past could have braced her for instant, worldwide celebrity. It was during these years that Susan was finally diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, a form of autism. The diagnosis explained so much: her love of routines, her difficulty with sudden change, her struggles with social interactions. But knowing didn't make the pressure any easier. Today, in 2025, Susan rarely seeks the spotlight, and many point back to this chapter as the reason why. She learned that while fame gave her recognition, it also nearly broke her. Now she values peace and privacy far more than applause. As Susan's fame soared, her personal life became far more complicated. Overnight, she went from surviving on government support to earning millions from record sales and tours. But sudden wealth didn't bring peace. It tore her family apart. Her brother Jerry reportedly pressured her for a large loan, around £75,000, to save his failing business. When Susan gave in, other siblings accused her of favoritism, and bitter arguments erupted.
Could you take joy in holidays, in being with your family?
Well, sometimes I felt okay. Sometimes I didn't feel okay, but and the times I did feel okay, that sort of made up for it, because it's all important to have your family.
Stories leaked to the tabloids, painting an image of betrayal and mistrust. Some claimed Jerry even threatened to harm himself if she refused to help, though he denied it. Susan later said it was one of the darkest times of her life, because instead of celebrating her success, she was accused and resented by those closest to her. Over the years, Susan gave relatives nearly £2 million, hoping generosity would keep the peace. Instead, it deepened the divides. One dispute escalated so far that police visited her after angry messages were reported as harassment. To Susan, it felt like her private heartbreak had been dragged into public view. These betrayals cut her deeply. After a lifetime of being mocked by strangers, Susan now felt undermined by her own blood. It's no surprise that she now keeps her financial life quiet and tightly controlled. She still has an estimated net worth of $30–40 million, but she lives modestly, spending only a few £100s a week. While many celebrities flaunt luxury lifestyles, Susan avoids extravagance entirely. Hard lessons taught her that wealth can attract more pain than comfort. Even as Susan Boyle's voice stunned the world, her most difficult battles were invisible. Since childhood, she had quietly suffered epileptic seizures, which classmates mocked as fainting spells. Later in life, the diagnoses became more serious. In 2012, doctors confirmed she had type 2 diabetes and warned her to change her habits or risk losing not only her health, but her singing career. Susan, who once joked that chocolate was her true love, had to give it up entirely. She lost weight and adjusted her lifestyle, but the fear of losing her gift always lingered. Then came the most frightening chapter. In April 2022, Susan suffered a minor stroke that left her struggling to speak. For a singer, it was devastating. She spent months in therapy, relearning how to control her breath and rebuild her voice. By her own account, she devoted more than 1,000 hours to recovery. Many feared her career was over. Yet, in June 2023, she walked back onto the Britain's Got Talent stage. Trembling but determined, she sang, "I Dreamed a Dream Once More." Simon Cowell called it one of the most moving performances of his life. Fans wept, not because her voice was flawless, but because it was proof that resilience could triumph over despair. That moment explained why, in 2025, Susan's story isn't about vanishing. It's about surviving. Despite diabetes, epilepsy, and a stroke, she is still here, preparing new projects and finding strength in every setback. Her health struggles could have silenced her forever, but instead, they made her come back even more powerful. For most stars, wealth and fame mean moving into mansions, escaping small towns, and embracing luxury. Susan Boyle tried that path once, and it nearly destroyed her peace. After her rise to global fame, she bought a larger house in Scotland, hoping to start fresh. Instead, vandals targeted the property, throwing stones, attempting break-ins, and even setting paper fires. The attention was overwhelming, and Susan quickly handed the house over to her niece. She returned to the one place that had always felt safe, her childhood council home in Blackburn. There, surrounded by familiar streets and neighbors, Susan reclaimed a sense of normalcy. She attended church services regularly, volunteered with local charities, and continued shopping at the same small stores. While the world saw her as a millionaire celebrity, those in Blackburn still saw Susan, the quiet, kind woman they'd always known. This decision to retreat wasn't about failure, it was survival. Fame had given her money, recognition, and opportunity, but it also brought chaos, betrayal, and relentless scrutiny. In choosing to stay rooted in Blackburn, Susan proved that peace mattered more than appearances. She still lives in that modest home, still avoids extravagance, and still keeps her daily routines simple. When fans ask, "Where is Susan Boyle now?" the answer is almost shocking in its simplicity. She's right where she's always been, walking down the same streets, keeping her life small, and finding happiness in the quiet moments the spotlight could never offer. When Susan Boyle first captured the world's attention, one of the lines that stuck with fans was her admission, "Never been married, never been kissed." It was a statement that seemed almost unbelievable for a woman whose voice had touched millions. Yet behind the modest words was a truth shaped by years of putting everyone else first. She had devoted her life to caring for her parents, supporting her siblings, and even volunteering at her church. Romance was something she never placed at the center of her world. Still, Susan did experience glimpses of what could have been. In her 20s, she fell in love, but her father ended the relationship without telling her. "I would have made a brilliant mom," she once told interviewers. "I've got so much love to give." Now, at 64, Susan remains unmarried and lives alone in Blackburn. But she hasn't given up hope. In interviews, she has said that she wouldn't rule out finding love later in life if the right person came along. By 2025, many fans assumed Susan Boyle had quietly stepped away from music forever. But this year, on her 64th birthday, she surprised the world with a simple social media post. "I'm back, definitely back. Thank you for waiting." Within hours, it had 500,000 likes and tens of thousands of comments. The woman who once vanished without explanation was suddenly everywhere again, this time on her own terms. Susan revealed plans for a new documentary, a charity single, and even hinted at more live performances. She shared clips of her recovery journey, hours of vocal therapy, moments of laughter with her team, and her first hesitant attempts at singing after her 2022 stroke. For fans, it was more than a comeback. It was a resurrection. Her legacy, though, is not just her music. Susan changed the very idea of what a star could look like. In an industry obsessed with glamour, she proved that authenticity and raw talent could move the world. She sold over 25 million albums, outsold pop icons, and inspired millions who have ever been underestimated. She shows that even after setbacks, it's never too late to start again. For Susan, fame no longer means chasing charts or global tours. These days, it means using her platform to inspire, to give back, and to remind people that true strength is found in resilience. She may still live quietly in Blackburn, but her story continues to echo across the world. So, where is Susan Boyle now, in 2025? She's not lost, not forgotten, and certainly not finished. After years of silence, health scares, and family turmoil, she has chosen peace, living quietly in Blackburn while preparing one last chapter of music and reflection. Her journey is a reminder that sometimes disappearing doesn't mean giving up. It means surviving. From bullied schoolgirl to global star, from breakdowns to comebacks, Susan has endured it all with resilience. Today, at 64, she is living proof that hope can always return, even after the darkest storms. Drop a comment below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more forgotten Hollywood tales.